And welcome to the Midday Show. I am Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. Philly hospitality. Obviously, Philadelphia is rocking right now. A funny story out of Philadelphia about some restaurants that we want to talk about. And then just the whole fandom surrounding Philadelphia and the world-famous hospitality from Philadelphians in general. Kyrie Irving is all the drama, especially around the Brooklyn Nets. We have three topics that are around sports, but really we're going to talk very little about actual sports. I'm excited to get into some of this drama. Mark, how are you feeling today?
I'm a little chilly, to be honest with you.
Mark, how much time have you spent in Philadelphia?
Not that much.
You've spent one of the unique Pennsylvanians that has spent way more time in Baltimore than you actually have in Philadelphia or Pittsburgh.
Yeah, well, I lived in Baltimore, so yeah. I Philly is I don't know. The people in Baltimore call it Philadelphia, so I don't know if that it's I don't know.
Well, here's the story
for a unique place. We'll just leave it at that. It has unique fans, and it's a unique place.
But we're not going to leave it at that because we're going to talk about it today. There's a fascinating story on NBC Sports. Two popular Philadelphia eateries have turned down business from the Houston Astros. The Houston Astros have a full-time dietitian. They are in charge of trying to find meals that coordinate within the diets. They're also, a lot of people don't know this, especially Major League Baseball. I'm sure you do, but it's hard for them because they try to find meals that actually fit the culture or, the ethnicity or the homeland. Like there's a lot of Latin baseball players, so they try to find Latin food when they can, which can't be an easy thing to do in Northeast America. So the dietitian reached out around Philadelphia, reached out to some famous places, and people basically said, bug off. Your business is no good here.
Wait, what did they say? Was that bug off?
I'm sure they used the word John somewhere in there. Like they probably said, like, we're not helping that John, and then hung up the phone. But they turned it down. They had the opportunity to cater a World Series team, just not their own, and they turned it down. What's even better, before I let you dive into this, one of the eateries not only said no, but then posted a picture of the spread they made for the Phillies the same day.
Yeah, like it is. I mean, it's just great. And only I don't want to say only in Philadelphia, but it may be only in Philadelphia.
It's possible.
One of the beauties of a place like Philadelphia or Boston or whatever. I said this here. I never realized it until I got older, but you'll find Steeler fans who root for everybody in baseball season, in whatever, and they don't root for the Pirates because the Pirates suck. And it's the same way with like North Carolina basketball fans, Notre Dame football fans, Penn State football fans. Like you find very few diehard Penn State football fans who are diehard Penn State basketball fans. Then they root for Duke, or they root for Carolina, or they root for Villanova or somebody else. If you root for the Eagles, you root for the Phillies, you root for the Sixers, you root for the Flyers, and there's just no other way about it. And so these people go from sport to sport to sport, and they live and die with it. And it is even around here, even though we're so far removed, it is hard to find an Eagles fan who's not a Phillies fan. You don't find a guy who's like an Eagles fan and a Yankees fan, or they are together, and it's a beautiful thing.
David Portnoy was just recently in State College. He's the president of Barstool, for anybody who doesn't know, and he was doing one of his pizza reviews at State College, and some kid who is like your stereotypical. Just picture a 20-year-old kid who grew up in Philadelphia, and I promise you're picturing this kid. And he walks up, and he's basically just like, "Go Birds!" And he's just screaming this stuff at El Presidente. And basically, David Portnoy is like, "I came all the way to State College, and the scum of Philadelphia is standing here screaming at me." So, to your point, like, yes, like Philadelphia is Philadelphia is Philadelphia. And I know that's a very like planned way to put it, but if you are invested in Philadelphia, there is no outside team. It is Philly through and through.
Yep. And
I agree.
The best part, I think the best part of last night, well, I don't know if you were watching, you saw these stats. The 1,000th home run in World Series history was one that not Harper, the next kid, the third baseman, that he hit the 1,000 because Harper's was the 999. And then not the Richter scale, the seismograph readings. I saw these online of what registered in Philadelphia after the Harper home run and after they're the first team in World Series history. And the World Series has been around for a long time. Playoff numbers are diluted because when they talk about postseason home runs and postseason, there's so many more rounds than there used to be. So they're a little diluted. But the World Series has been around forever. And the first team to hit 3 home runs in the first 2 innings of a World Series game was the Phillies last night.
I love those records.
This poor pitcher who gave up 5. There can't be many starting pitchers who gave up 5 bombs in a World Series game. But because of the rain out and because they're going to play 5 days in a row now, possibly, they wanted him to absorb as much of this as he can to save the bullpen. So they left him out a little longer than they would have. And he's probably has a dubious distinction. I don't know if that's a record, but I would bet it has to be.
2 things, because I have one. I'm going to do like the whole media, like, and kind of like devil's advocate and like, should they do it or not? But before that, I did not know this because you're a baseball stat guy. The Verlander statistics in the World Series, I found that fascinating.
It is. It's neat. I knew it coming in.
Yeah.
And you just thought that kind of like he's either going to not quite get there and the Yankees are going to knock Houston off. And this is going to be kind of he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Right.
But coming into this year, he was 0-6 with an ERA of 5 point something. And then, of course, he pitches game 1 and they get him a 5-0 lead.
Right.
And Cy Young winners don't blow 5-0 leads. And he blew the whole thing. So now he didn't lose because they won later.
Right.
But he got a no decision. But now he's 0-6 with his ERA like 6.05. And
he missed a chance to put that notch on his belt for sure.
Yes.
Here's my devil's advocate for the Philly businesses refusing to serve the Houston Astros. And I'm 100% raining on a very funny story. I can't reiterate enough. I find the story hilarious. I think it's very, very funny. Now I'm going to play devil's advocate. If you're a Philadelphia business, and I don't know if these 2 businesses did that, but I think the conversation is interesting. Over the last 3 years, I find it hard to believe that a eatery did not accept some sort of grant or financial benefits to help them survive. Right? Is that fair to say?
Okay.
Is there any issue? Like, is there any small part of this where you look at it and you go, how much federal aid, state aid did these places probably receive over the last 2 years? And now you're not going to accept what would be deemed fair or good business because, like, they're from Houston. Is there any part of you that, like, to me, there's like 10% where I'm kind of like I don't know if that's the best look.
I'm picturing this. I'm picturing the Astros sitting in the locker room, like eating Twinkies because they couldn't find a meal. Because nobody would.
Someone did, because again, like, it's business, right?
Right.
I mean, some business out there have to say we can't turn this down.
Couldn't you take the aspect that our food's going to be so good, they're going to eat so much of it, they're going to be fat and sluggish, and they're not going to play well? Like, I don't know. But it is funny. It is really funny.
So you have no issue with it at all? Like, as a business owner, you don't think there's any, like, kind of like, hey, here's some good business for us. We just received all these things to keep us going. Are we really in a position after the last 2 years to turn down money? Especially like good money.
A couple of them clearly are. I think it's funny.
I think your argument against it would be as a Philly business, you're actually going to make more money now than you did before, what you would have made off of the Houston Astros.
I agree. This is great free advertising.
Okay, I just wanted to throw it out, just a little devil's advocate, just wanted to throw it out there. Real quick, I just want to say thank you to Weis Markets for being our title sponsor. Grocery Rewards, Gas Rewards, they also have shop online to go. You can go online, you can order, you can get there, pick it up. It's already done for you. Don't waste your time walking through the aisles if you don't have to. Be sure to go to weismarkets.com for all of your grocery needs.
Do you think the Astros need to see that ad?
Yeah, probably. They probably could have used Weis Markets on last night for sure. Lisa agrees with us. Those businesses will now roll in the business from Philly consumers from the publicity. I totally agree, Lisa. I very much do. I'm probably just trying to start some stuff that I don't need to. I'm excited to get to this. I actually kind of left a lot of me. You had brought up the Trump thing, which I want to talk about tomorrow. There's a couple of other stories happening. I kind of left it all off because I find the Kyrie Irving, Brooklyn Nets, all of it is very, very fascinating. And there's a lot of interesting questions about workplace environments. There's a lot of interesting questions about like suspensions. And there's even like a lot of stuff about when to speak up and when not to speak up. For those who don't know,
I agree. And I think before you get into it, because this looks a lot like NBA. And as you touched on, this is about 3% NBA. And it is about all the things that you just talked about. Workplace environment, who to hire, accountability. So this is a story that just fits to society, and it just kind of happened to come from this league.
Yes, totally agree. For those who don't know, here's the 30-second story. Kyrie Irving is a player for the Brooklyn Nets. He is an NBA All-Star. He's considered one of the better guards in the league. He's an NBA champion. He's also very controversial. He has said that the earth is flat. He has been a vaccine denier. He missed several games last year, almost the entire season, because he refused to get a vaccine, which that debate is not here or there. Just the idea that in order to be an employee, he needed to get a vaccine, and he said no. He most recently made the news because he tweeted about an anti-Semitic video and basically was encouraging people to go watch the video. He is very like kind of conspiracy Joe. He very much finds himself into these rabbit holes and is willing to speak out about them when maybe other people kind of keep into their den, if you get what I'm saying. Here's the catch for me, and this is where we'll start. Up to this point, Kyrie Irving has not been suspended. He has not been suspended by the NBA. He has not been suspended by the Brooklyn Nets. It seems to be no actual repercussion for him making an anti-Semitic post. I'm opposed. I think he should have been suspended. I think not only should the Brooklyn Nets have done something, the NBA probably should have done something as well. I don't fully understand why, of all people, Kyrie Irving is not being suspended. And listen, I'm not saying suspend him for the season, but I'm saying like the idea that there's just no repercussion at all makes no sense to me.
Well, I agree with that. One of the parts that I took from it, because if you go, he got an argument with a reporter. Reporter asked him a question because what happened is he reshared it either on his Instagram page or his Facebook page or whatever, and he reshared this. Was it about a movie?
Yes, it's about a movie that has anti-Semitic, I don't want to say parts, but like commentary, like different things about it.
So the guy asked him about it at the thing and at a press conference, and Kyrie's sitting at the table in front of the microphone, and the reporter says, "Why are you promoting this thing that's anti-Semitic?" And Kyrie gets in an argument. He says, "I'm not promoting it." And the guy, and again, just to throw, Kyrie Irving went to Duke, and they don't let morons into Duke. So
I know, but did he?
He didn't go for very long. I get it.
But, I mean,
But he said, "Well, I'm not promoting it." And the guy said, "Well, you shared it on your page. You are promoting it." And he said, "No, I'm not. I just shared it on my page." And then we get into this, like, of course you are. Anything you pick to share, you're promoting. Whether it's like if someone tells you a joke and you think it's inappropriate and it's vulgar and whatever the case may be, then you don't retell it. You certainly don't. Like that's So anything, he took it and shared it on his page for a reason. You're certainly promoting it. And he got an argument with a guy who says, I'm not promoting it. I just shared it on my page. And then, so one of the comments, I think I sent it to you and I screenshot it. It's one of somebody responded that this is what happens when, basically when Kyrie Irving pretends to be intellectual and then someone pushes back and wants to have a conversation about it and he's not smart enough to have it.
Can I read it real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Myron Medcalf of ESPN, he said, Kyrie is like most Fox intellectuals. They don't read, so their whole mantra is rooted in YouTube clips. They don't explain the things they say because their attitude is based on the idea that they speak and others listen. They don't want dialogue because they are not actually good at it. That was the tweet from Metcalf.
So that's it is fascinating that there was no, you may not know this. To me, it's fascinating from the big league, from the administration and the league and all that stuff. They never got suspended. It's also fascinating to me that there's an intelligent adult who thinks that he can share something on his Facebook page that he's not promoting.
Yeah, that part makes no sense to me. You may not, even if you post something that you are against, usually you make a statement or it's very clear that you are against it. The idea that you're just going to post it and then have no actual statement saying like, I condemn this. Yes, you are then promoting what you are posting. A lot of people don't know this. Last year, there was a center for the Miami Heat named Myers Leonard. Do you remember Myers Leonard at all? So Myers Leonard, he was with the Miami Heat when they went to the championship in the bubble. He was Is he
the guy that didn't wear the shirt or didn't kneel?
He didn't kneel. Kneel. But that was before what I'm about to tell you. So he used an anti-Semitic phrase while playing a video game, and he was streaming it. Okay. So what happened to him was Leonard apologized. Myers Leonard was suspended by the Miami Heat. He was fined $50,000, and he was required to participate in a cultural diversity program. As of right now, Kyrie Irving has had none of that happen to him. I think they're very comparable. I don't understand. I really don't have anything else to say about it because I don't understand how nothing is happening to Kyrie Irving. Again, I don't want him out of the league. I don't want to suspend him for the season. But the idea that this is just rolling over makes no sense to me.
It's almost like they're afraid of him a little bit.
It's very, very bizarre. So you have the suspension part of it. Here's a couple of other things. You had mentioned he kind of argued with the reporter and not promoting it. I also don't understand how quiet NBA players have been towards Kyrie Irving. That part makes no sense to me because the NBA, unlike other organizations, unlike the NFL, unlike MLB, they are like first foot in when it comes to standing up for social issues, for equality and for rights and for all of these things. I don't understand how an owner, there's an investigation, an owner says something, and we have to get rid of him. A coach does something wrong, and we have to get rid of him. And the players are more willing to speak up, and I think it's great. Their inability to speak out on Kyrie Irving is flabbergasted. It makes no sense to me at all how all of these people that claim like they will fight for everything and they'll tweet this and they'll tweet that. And now all of a sudden Kyrie Irving says something and it is quiet. It is crickets. You can't hear a thing. I don't fully understand that.
I don't know. To say the obvious answer is because there aren't a lot of Jewish players in the league. There may be no Jewish players in the league. Are they quick to fight for civil rights issues when it involves blacks? Is that like, do they fight transgender? Do they fight? They seem to be very supportive of the LGBTQ community.
The NBA is like one of the most, if there's a social issue to be like promoted or to fight for, like the NBA already has one foot in before other organizations are even thinking about it. Players are willing to tweet about it. Players are willing to speak out about it. They have, I don't know if it's because they view Kyrie Irving as one of their own. I don't know if, like you said, if there's like this idea of like, just don't touch it, but they have refused to speak up about this. And
but have Have they ever spoke out or fought back about anti-Semitism? Because it's not something that
it's possible. But either way, I think for me, it's the idea of like, I mean, they spoke up for Brittany Griner, right? I mean, when Donald Sterling,
basketball player.
When the Donald Sterling stuff came out, like they made sure that he was gone and he should have been. Like when Robert Sarver stuff came out, they made sure.
What did Donald Sterling say? What group did Donald Sterling attack?
Well, African Americans, like black people. Well, so your whole point then is that it's about anti-Semitism. It's not about the fact that it's not about just social rights. It has to apply to my social right. Is that what you're saying?
That seems to be the equation. That it's not anti-Semitism doesn't land in their locker room.
Yeah, it's interesting because again, like there's all races, there's all different walks of life in the NBA. I'm just shocked that not one person has come out because again, any other circumstance, people would be tweeting, people would be saying things. They have basically all but protected Kyrie Irving. So the Kyrie thing is absolutely fascinating. I hope something does happen. I don't want Kyrie Irving gone. I want him to learn from it. I hope he continues to play at some point. But this idea that it's just rolling over makes no sense at all.
Well, don't you think there's an aspect too in every walk of life that in every office place or whatever, when you have a group of people, the person who's, I say crazy is just a general term, but you handle the crazy guy a little more delicately than everybody else because you don't know how he's going to react. So it's one thing to reprimand or to correct or to have a conversation with this person, but this person I'm afraid of because they might go slash my tires. So, doesn't Kyrie give you the, he is the proverbial box of chocolates. The next thing that comes from Kyrie, you have no idea what's coming, and it keeps people on edge a little bit.
I think part of it is because this feels like it's not, I'm trying to think how to say this, because he hasn't done anything up until this point. He hasn't done anything that I think the court of public opinion would deem is like illegal or like truly for like to say the earth is flat is not a crime, right? Like no. It's crazy, but it's not a crime. To decide that you didn't want to have the vaccine, I was pro-choice. Now he's letting everybody else hang kind of because he won't get it. So now he can't participate. And so there, you get in that conversation. So I think it's not like his second or third time like causing an issue. But if you're the Brooklyn Nets and you are now 3 years into this, you have to be looking around kind of like this might be the last straw. Like we can no longer just continue to perpetuate what is happening or what is continuing to happen.
Well, I think yes, and now this comes to like everybody else.
If I'm the 10th man for the Brooklyn Nets, and I am watching this from my locker, and just nothing ever seems to happen to him. He gets paid. He doesn't have to show up to play. He makes his own choices, and then he says something that he should not say, and nothing comes from it. There is no repercussion at all. If I'm the 10th person in the office, I'm looking at it like, what is going on? Like, how? Like, are you guys blind?
Well, but this goes back to every aspect of life. This goes back to other workplaces. This goes back to relationships. You start dating someone who's been divorced 4 times, and you think that I'm going to be different, and this is going to be. And Kyrie has been Kyrie everywhere he's been. And, the Brooklyn Nets are like, we're going to treat him better and he's going to be different for us. And we are going to be this marriage. And he's still the same guy. And
but doesn't that make it even worse? Because it's because to me,
but everybody does it. This happens all over the place because we're better. And this other person has his or her record looks worse because they've never got to deal with us before, and we are going to fix it.
Yes, which is a Brooklyn Nets issue. From a Kyrie perspective, though, you can't come to the podium and say, like, my bosses don't support me. Like, you can't come out and say, like, I've had no support here. They try to bottle me up. They're, like, working me like a dog. Like, they have bent every way to try to make this person happy, to try to make him successful. He literally got paid everything he was supposed to get paid last year, and he barely played because they allowed him to be pro-choice and make his own decision, which is fine. But then reward the organization or your company that allows you to do that. Throw that company or organization a bone and just show up to work and do what you're supposed to do.
See, that's where I disagree with you. Well, yes, I agree with you.
What part do you disagree with?
Because he doesn't. It's not in his DNA, or he would have done it before. When you ask all these people who've been fired 6 times, it's not their fault. It's because the boss was always an idiot, or the people in all these failed relationships. It's not, there's no magic number where people sit back and look. Maybe when he's 70, he'll look back and say, but no, it's not. When you say he can't possibly criticize management, how many people in relationships are complaining and you're just like, wait, what? You think it's her fault or you think it's his fault? But they've convinced themselves, and in every situation they're in, personal, professional, whatever, it's always everybody else's fault. So I would be shocked if Kyrie took accountability.
Well, they owe him here's the difference too. You can't really fire him. You owe him $40 million and you can't trade him because he's untradeable. Nobody right now will touch him with a 10-foot pole. So at least in a work environment, the company can come over and be like, hey, listen, it's just not working. It is what it is. It can even be cordial or amicable. But at this point, it can't even be cordial or amicable because it's kind of like, oh my God, we just can't get rid of this guy. And he just continues to throw us under the bus.
Oh, Kyrie will be cordial because he'll just say, all right, just make sure the check keeps coming. I'm good. I'm going to go camp. I'm going camping on the edge of the earth, right where the flatness stops.
So here's the other irony to this. An employee tweeted something that was, I believe it was a tweet. We'll have to look up exactly. I had it saved up here and now I can't find it. So a player promotes something that is anti-Semitic. And the Brooklyn Nets solution yesterday was to fire the head coach. That is the other part to this is it's not like the Brooklyn Nets wouldn't lay down the hammer. It's not like they weren't willing to make choices or make decisions. Just none of them actually involved Kyrie Irving. So they fire the head coach, which is, listen, I'm not implying the head coach can't be fired. You can fire the head coach. I have no problem with that. But on top of firing the head coach, after a player has not been suspended for anti-Semitic promotion, they went and they're going to hire Ime Udoka. Ime Udoka is currently suspended by the Boston Celtics for essentially what I would argue it's workplace harassment. There's the argument right now, they had an investigation. There's a fine line. Essentially what happened is he had relationships with subordinates who felt like they were obligated to do it because he was their superior. And they have come out and said that they felt like they kind of had to have the relationship. And this is the person you're going to bring in to help right this insane dramatic ship. To me, this is workplace. It shouldn't be allowed. You're literally, if you're a good employee for the Brooklyn Nets, either on the team or on the staff, they are literally torturing you with these decisions. This is horrific decision-making from a management standpoint.
So this goes back to whoever's making these decisions at Brooklyn, obviously feels like they are special and that they will fix it. And, again, workplace, this is, bring me your stray and lonely dogs, and we will love them, and they will love us forever. So you've got a guy who he's married, right? Isn't he married?
I believe
so he's married. Together. He's married. He's had multiple women who worked for the Celtics complain that they felt kind of forced into a relationship. He's not charged with rape or anything, but they felt that they had he wanted to have a relationship, and they're like, I'm afraid I'll lose my job. So he did this with multiple women while he was married. He was suspended. But again, Brooklyn will fix you. You're a little bit wayward here in you come to us and we'll make it all better. And they're so desperate to win And
this is the funny part,
because
is
he
like,
is a good coach. Like nobody debates that.
Well, that's the thing, though. Like you and I said, 3% of this is actually going to be about basketball. Like this is,
right.
For me, this is about bringing in somebody who, let's put it this way. If we had a hierarchy list for the Brooklyn Nets organization, and you started from most important all the way down to the bottom, once you get past person like 5, if you're the 7th best player for the Brooklyn Nets, you're thinking right now, this is an absolute clown show. If you're a woman in the organization for the Brooklyn Nets, you're looking at this hiring. You're looking at this hiring like, what are we doing? If you're like the janitor, you're walking around like, who is running this place? So it's like, other than the top 5 people at the top, everything that's happening right now, there's no way anybody inside of that building, below person like 6 or 7, really believes the decisions that are being made makes sense. Like, actual sense.
No, I get it. But when you're at the top when you're that high up on the food chain in these billion-dollar businesses, you can be so insulated, and the 10 people you work with have to be yes men. You don't have to go out into the masses into the grocery store or into McDonald's to get
right.
And so you don't deal with any of the people that are looking at you going, what the hell are you doing? And their lives going to be fine. They're going to still go home and go on their yachts and the odds and do whatever they do. And they are, like the masses think they're crazy, but they never deal with the masses. So whatever.
I understand what you're saying. It's a fair point. I have down just a couple of other things that I wrote down here about this. Ime Udoka, by the way, because I think he should coach again. Like, he's not going to go to jail. As of right now, he's not going to be convicted of a crime. I'm not implying Ime Udoka should never get the opportunity to coach again. It's just, I said to you the other day, there's no way in the history of professional sports that a suspended coach has been hired during their suspension. There's no way.
Yeah, I didn't even know you could. But he's not suspended by the league. He was suspended by the team.
This is the other issue that like these bigger leagues or organizations have. They allow the teams to suspend them, but then they're not held to any consequence from the league, and it allows people to kind of like float and slip through the cracks. So Boston comes out and does it because they don't want the NBA to punish Boston. So Boston's like, we will punish him ourselves, leave us alone. And the NBA goes, okay. But the result of that then is you end up with an organization like Brooklyn going, hey, the person who made women feel inferior in your organization, we'll bring him in to be in charge of our organization. And it doesn't make any sense right now. Right now, it makes no sense. If they hired Ime Udoka 2 years from now and he served his suspension, and then like, okay, like people move on, people better themselves. But to actually do it right now, when we're less than a month and a half finding out about it and he's serving a year-long suspension, it's ludicrous. The NBA has a real problem with this, in my opinion.
Well, but again, I go back to society. Haven't you read these stories about, people who've died mysterious deaths, and then they looked back at her first husband who died from food poisoning, and then a second husband who died from food poisoning.
Are you going Kyrie Irving?
What?
Are you going Kyrie Irving on me right now?
Well, no, but I'm saying there's so many when you have these, you get these domestic violence people. The guy beats up his first wife and then he finds a second wife, and common sense would tell you what are you doing? But it happens all the time. It happens all the time. So the fact that the Brooklyn Nets hired a guy and they think they'll fix him, just like the wife who, the guy beat his first wife, but he tells her she's different. She's so desperate to be loved that she believes it. She thinks I'm different. He won't do it to me, and then he does, and she's shocked and nobody else is. And so when this turns out to be a debacle, like the Brooklyn Nets will be shocked and nobody else will.
A couple of things before we end the topic. Just so people do know, Ime Udoka did work for the Brooklyn Nets before he was hired by the Boston Celtics. Ime Udoka also worked for the Philadelphia 76ers when Ben Simmons played for the Philadelphia 76ers. Ben Simmons, who we didn't even mention on this show, is another dramatic piece of this whole Brooklyn Nets thing. So if you are the Brooklyn Nets, he has worked in your organization. He has worked with one of the people you are trying to help that's playing for your team. I'm not implying the idea of hiring Ime Udoka is like out of nowhere. I'm just implying that to do it after a month and a half is insane. It makes no sense. Also, they're 2-6. They lost to the Chicago Bulls last night. Kyrie Irving scored 4 points. It was one of his worst games of his career. Kevin Durant had 3 turnovers in the last 5 minutes of the game. So this is, the whole thing. We didn't even talk about Kevin Durant. We didn't even talk about Ben Simmons. We didn't even talk about the basketball side of this. The whole thing is absolutely ridiculous.
They didn't have a coach.
Yes, they did. Jacques Vaughn.
No, they fired him in the afternoon. You said this. So they were just right. It was a pickup game. It was like intramural.
Just to clarify, 2 of the best players on the planet couldn't play basketball because there wasn't a coach standing on the sideline. No. I just want to make sure I understand you correctly.
They played, but they had no one in charge. They were
they didn't know what to do. They were so fed up with the guy telling them what to do that then once they had no one telling them what to do, they didn't know what to do.
Exactly. We're on the same page.
That's I figured it was. I don't have a graphic for it, but do you want a minute of interruptedness before we go today? It's okay if you don't.
I know I have things to say tomorrow about Phillies. I do want to say this as I'm not trying to temper, slow anyone's roll that's wearing red and peas on their shirt. But when they talk about, because you're thinking how hot the Phillies are and how hot they are at home, and how, just so you know, didn't Houston sweep the first round and sweep the second round? Houston has been on fire in this playoffs too. I know their starting pitcher stunk last night. I know they're 2-1. Their starting pitcher stunk in game 1 and game 3, basically. But Houston's good. They got some guys who can throw, and it is as hot as the Phillies are. Yeah, Houston's been pretty hot too. So this is far. Don't go popping the champagne just yet. This series is a long way from being over.
No, well said. Very well said. I'm going to read about the Trump stuff tonight. I think that's an interesting one for tomorrow. So we'll dive into some of that stuff. But there was a lot of
too, not to cut you off, but it's again how the media has, because I something popped up. I clicked on it. I read it because I didn't really know. I didn't understand it. So I tried to go and understand it. And then I realized the headline was again very misleading. And I think I think the topic is important. I think the topic is interesting, but it's just another way that we're slowly educating. And maybe you're right. Maybe your generation is better at it than my generation, but we're slowly educating ourselves as the headlines, especially online, are trying to get you to click. So what they say isn't what the headline implies, is not always what it comes across. And it happened to me with a Trump story. And I think it's been very misleading. So I think it's an interesting topic we'll get to tomorrow as we get closer and closer to the election. Even though Trump's not in the election, he's still in the news all the time and blah, blah, blah.
No, I'm glad you said something, because when you brought it up to me today, I think I texted you back and said, I've only seen the headlines. I haven't had a chance to read yet. I said, I'd like to be able to dive into it before we talk about it. And so I think a lot of people see the headline, they move on, and that's their talking point, right? And it's so, yes, I agree with you. I think it'll be interesting. So I'm going to dive into that. We'll get back into some of the other news, but I knew there was a lot of meat on that bone today that was worth talking about. So
it is. It's very well said. You said they read the headline and that's their talking point. And we have to be smart enough to realize that we can't. Well, we can do that. We do it all the time. But if we want to be accurate and we want to actually grasp what it's about, then we can't do it because they don't do a good job with the headline.
No. They want you to click, and that's the game. That's the game. That's their financial motivation.
Yes, we just have to understand that that's the game.
Yes. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news. And thank you again to Weis Markets for being the title sponsor of the almost Emmy-nominated Midday Show. I am
Can
Jeff
we-
Everett. Here's Mark
can we-
Messina. Go ahead.
Can we change that to the soon-to-be Emmy? Because it's got to be right around the corner. It's got to be coming.
When are the Emmys? Are they early spring, right?
I think they're spring, yeah.
I think that's the 2023, the soon to be Emmy nominated. I think that's the 2023 slogan.
I'll check my phone. Maybe they called during the show. Maybe they let us know.
They might have. I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina. We will see you guys tomorrow.